What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I really wanted to answer a question that came from one of you guys over on my Instagram. And that was, Vanessa, how do I know when I'm expert enough to start my coaching business? Now, I know this question is very specific to coaches. However, I think that this topic is applicable to almost anyone. If you're a content creator, a business owner, a coach, an entrepreneur, doesn't matter. I know that imposter syndrome is real. And for me, for a very long time, I felt like I couldn't be successful in business because I wasn't an expert. That's why if you are someone who resonates with this message, who is currently struggling with this and wants to move forward in your journey feeling confident in your abilities, then I hope you keep on watching. Now, to kickstart this video, I want to kind of share with you my mindset around being an expert. Now, I understand that being an expert requires 10 years, 10,000 hours, or whatever these other resources mention. However, I also believe that you don't need to be an expert in order to take the first step of you actually launching your business, starting whatever you want to start, being a content creator, educating people in the things that you know. I really do not think that you need to be an expert. Heck, I wasn't even an expert when I started, and personally, I don't think that I'm an expert yet compared to the other peers in my industry. Now, obviously, for some of you guys who are watching my channel or who are familiar with me, you probably think that I am an expert in your eyes. And what I want to illustrate here is that being an expert is a little bit subjective. There's always going to be someone who knows more than you, and there's always going to be someone who knows less than you. In your eyes, I could be an expert. However, I don't think I'm an expert compared to the other people that I'm looking up to, and those people probably don't feel like they're an expert either. So if you keep going down this path of feeling like you need to be an expert in order to even take the first step in your business, then you're going to be waiting forever. On top of that, what I also want you to realize is that the expert was once a beginner. Everyone starts at stage 0. However, it's the people who actually took that step forward to gain that experience, to start working with clients, to jump before they're ready. They're the ones that after some time actually become the experts in our industry. However, if you're just sitting there waiting and not taking any action and thinking that someone's gonna knock on your door one day and say, congratulations, here's your certificate. Congratulations, you're ready now. It's never gonna happen for you. So that's why you cannot use not being an expert as an excuse to not start at all. That's why I personally also believe that you need to master your mindset first. You don't need another certification. You don't need another exam. You don't need another book. You don't need another course. You need to master your mindset around feeling like an expert and feeling ready enough and feeling good enough to actually serve your audience and serve your clients and serve your people. That's why the first tip that I have for you is to acknowledge your results. Now, I talk a lot about my business journey in this video right here, so make sure you check it out after this video. But in a nutshell, what you need to know is when I first started, I worked with clients for free. And the reason why I worked with clients for free is because at the time, I really didn't feel like I was an expert. I didn't really know what I was capable of. And I'm really glad that I went this route of not charging any of the clients that I initially worked with, because it definitely put the edge off and it allowed me to be confident in coaching these people without thinking that I needed to deliver in order for them to get their investment back. Because like I said, I really wasn't certain of what I was truly capable of. And as I was working with these clients, I realized that I actually knew a lot about marketing and business and all these aspects that I didn't realize I was actually good at until I met people that knew less than me. And as I was working with these clients, I was also starting to post more videos on YouTube, teaching people the things that I knew. And then based on the reaction, I realized that I was actually good at what I was doing and that people actually found value in the results that I had produced for myself and the knowledge that I had. And what this experience taught me is that there are a handful of people out there who know less than you, whether you realize it or not. That's why what's so important is that you need to acknowledge the results that you've already gotten for yourself. And what I want you to do after you finish this video is to actually make a list of all of your accomplishments. And I know that it can be really hard to actually list down all of your accomplishments because often we feel like it's insignificant, but trust me when I say that there are tons of people out there who either want what you have or want to learn from you. For example, if you know how to edit videos, guess what? There's someone out there that doesn't even know how to pick a software or doesn't even know the basics of video editing. If you are someone who lost 20 pounds on your journey, well, guess what? There's someone out there who doesn't even know the fundamentals of basic health and nutrition and exercise. If you are someone who's finally nailed their niche in your business, guess what? There's someone out there that has 20 million ideas and doesn't even know which one is going to be the winning one. That's why you need to be able to step outside of of your own ego, step outside of yourself, and really honestly list down all the things that you've ever accomplished, because I guarantee that a lot of people out there are gonna wanna learn from you, regardless at what level you believe that you need to be at. Now, I talk way more about this in my program, the Bossgram Academy, but what I realize is that many people feel like they need to have steps 1 to 10 accomplished in order to even start, in order to even post content online, in order to even get clients. However, the fact that you even accomplish steps 1 to 3 is already really significant to someone who's at step 0. You can even take me, for example. When I was first starting out my business, I didn't have a whole list of clients. I wasn't making money. I didn't have a thriving YouTube channel. However, I was still working with clients, and what I specifically coached them on was how to find their niche, how to find that winning idea, how to create an exit plan so that they can leave their 9-to-5s. These were all things that I had accomplished myself and that they saw value in because I was already 3 steps ahead of them. Now, was I promising that they were gonna have a 6-figure business? Was I promising that they were gonna land their own clients? Absolutely not, because that was something that I hadn't even accomplished yet. But they still saw value at the end of the day because I was already 3 steps ahead. And this leads me to the second piece of advice that I have in order for you to remove that imposter syndrome and feel confident enough to even take that first step of working with clients or even posting content online. And that is, be honest and have integrity. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give you is to set clear expectations with the people that you work with or the people that you serve. And also be transparent about the things that you can do and the things that you can't do right from the get-go. Like I said earlier, I was very clear with my initial clients that, hey, I'm not gonna guarantee that you can make money on this. I'm not gonna guarantee that you're gonna get your own clients, but what I can help you on is finding that winning idea so that you feel supported, so that you have that necessary clarity for you to actually execute on this plan that we're gonna develop together. That's what I said, and I set that expectation. And therefore, during our time working together, I never felt imposter syndrome or I never felt bad because I was very clear from the get-go what the expectation of our relationship would be. Not only this, I want to remind you, especially if you are a coach watching this, is that you are the boss. You get to choose which clients that you work with, not the other way around. And that's why there are application processes. That's why there are discovery calls. That's why you need to interview these clients, because you're never going to take someone that you actually cannot help. If you already know you have a potential client coming into your business asking you for help on something that you're not qualified or that you don't know how to do, then you don't take them. You only take the clients where you know for sure that you can definitely serve and that you can definitely get results for. Granted that this client is also an action taker and putting in the work, but the idea here is that you're creating a problem in your head that you're not expert enough, that someone's gonna out you out and all that, forgetting the fact that you can actually choose who you work with. And before I move on to the next piece of advice that I have for you, I also want to remind you and mention that I feel like as coaches, we put way too much pressure on ourselves to get results for our clients. And I know you're probably like, what the heck did you just say? But we often forget that the client is also just as responsible of getting results for themselves as well. And I'm telling you right now, as someone who's worked with a lot of clients and also someone who is a course instructor and have worked with a lot of students, I give the same roadmap, the same strategy to everyone, but there are going to be a handful of people that get the results and then another handful that don't. And that has nothing to do with the program that I've given, the outline that I've given, me as a coach, especially the fact that I've given the same amount of things to every single person. Where the difference lies is the client or that student, because time and time again, I've noticed that the people who get results are the ones that are resourceful, that are willing to ask questions, that are willing to do the work and do it on time. The people who are actually executing, these are the people that end up reaping the results. And that's why when you're working with clients, you want to make sure that you don't feel like you need to be 100% responsible for them and that you need to be a mom and hounding them and making sure that they're doing the work. The client is just as responsible of getting their own results as you are. So with that out of the way, the next piece of advice that I have for you in order for you to truly feel like an expert or to start becoming an expert is to start sharing your advice online. And what I mean by this this is that if you want to accelerate your authority in a certain space, or you want to be regarded as an expert one day, you got to start sharing your advice. You got to start sharing your tips, your tricks, all these things to your audience. Let's take me, for example, again. I definitely did not feel like I was a social media expert or that I knew anything at all. However, I started posting Instagram stories and I started to post on YouTube about my tips and tricks on Instagram and social media, just the things that I knew. I was simply sharing my advice the same way that I would to a friend. And suddenly these videos started gaining traction. People started to really go to my account, whether it's on Instagram or on YouTube, to get social media advice because I was being consistent in sharing my lessons. And therefore, eventually, I started to become an expert, or I started to be seen as an expert in this space. Now, did I intend for that? Not really, but if I were to reverse engineer the things that I've built for myself, I realized that those videos and those content pieces were a true piece in accelerating my authority in the social media space. And this kind of goes back to my first tip that I gave you guys, and that is you never know how much you know until you meet people who know less than you. Honestly, a lot of the advice that I've given on social media, I thought that it was a no-brainer. I thought everyone knew about this stuff. But yet, now I've grown my channel to almost 100,000 people, of people who trust my advice because they want to learn from me. And I think it's absolutely craziness because for the longest time, I thought a lot of these things were common sense. But it's not, and it really isn't. And it's the same with the things that you want to teach as well. And speaking of starting to share content and starting to share your advice and what you know online, the next tip that I have for you in order to truly accelerate your authority in the space and becoming an expert is niching down. Now, I know if this isn't your first rodeo to my channel, you're probably sick of hearing me constantly talking about the importance of niching down, especially if you are a beginner. But I gotta tell you, niching down was one of the most important and best decisions that I made in my business. If you actually look at the beginning stages of my YouTube channel, I was a little bit all over the place. I had a niche on millennials, but I was still talking about a variety of topics ranging from quitting the 9-to-5, getting out of the slump, a lot of mindset things, a little bit of social media. I was not really niched down. However, once I actually started niching down to Instagram and YouTube and really being social media specific, I started to being recognized in the social media space as an expert and as an authority, to the point where I got interviewed with Sunny Lenarduzzi and video influencers, and I am less than a year into my channel, which is insane. And I talk more about niches and everything like that and the importance in these two videos right here, so I highly recommend that you check them out. But essentially, if you niche down and you are consistently pumping out content on a particular and specific topic, then it's going to be easier for people to identify you as the go-to resource. Versus if you're posting content on random things, people don't really have a reason to associate you as the go-to. And that's why niching down is really important, especially if you're starting out. As you can see, for me, I'm starting to branch off into other topics that I'm passionate about, like coaching, like mindset, and all these things. But definitely, because I was starting out, niching down was truly life-changing and game-changing to my business. And another thing about niching down is that the more specialized you are, the less competition there's going to be. If you are a generalist and you do a little bit of everything, you're going to be competing with a lot of people in that space. However, if you stay focused and you really zoom in on something, there's going to be less competition and it's going to be way faster for you to be known for something. For example, if you are just a fitness coach, okay, awesome. Now you're competing with all these other fitness coaches in the industry. However, if you're a fitness coach who specializes for working moms who work in corporate that don't have a lot of time to fit exercise in their routine, then it's going to be a lot faster for you to be seen as an expert in that space because it's so dang specific. And also, there's going to be a way less competition that you have to deal with. Now, moving on to my next piece of advice on how you can become an expert or accelerate your expertise on something and also get rid of your imposter syndrome is you gotta focus on working on yourself. Now, if there's anything that you take away from this video, I want you to remember this. You are your very first client and you are the most important case study that you'll ever have. This means that you have to constantly work on yourself because you are gonna be the best social proof that you can leverage to prove to people you are qualified to do what you do. Now, this absolutely does not mean you need to have steps 1 to 10 packed that down before you even start, like I mentioned earlier on in this video. What it means is that while you're teaching someone else steps 1 to 3, because that's all you've gotten so far, you're also working on yourself to accomplish steps 4, 5, and 6. And then once you've accomplished that, now you can teach other people steps 1 to 6. And while you're teaching other people steps 1 to 6, you're also upgrading yourself to steps 7, 8, 9, and 10. Do you understand what I'm trying to get here? Let me give you an actual personal example. Like I mentioned earlier, I only knew steps 1 to 3 when I was starting out my business, and therefore I only helped people on how to find their niche, how to identify and have a clear roadmap so that they feel confident in launching their business online. But while I was doing this, I was also continuously working on my own business. Like I mentioned before, in the beginning when I was starting out, I only knew steps 1 to 3, and therefore I was teaching people how to find their niche, how to have a clear action plan, how to launch their business and feel confident in executing the roadmap that we developed. However, that doesn't mean I stopped growing my own business. I was still working on myself, and now I've launched a course, I've hired a team, I've grown a YouTube channel and an Instagram account. I've done all these things, and guess what? Now I can teach other people to do the same. And while I'm doing this right now as we speak, I'm still working on getting myself to the next level. I'm not stopping my learning, because the more I learn, the more I can share. And that's why it's so important to always treat yourself as the most important client in your business, the most important case study that you'll ever have, because it's you that is portraying the results that you can give to other people. However, you're never gonna get this if you don't start. So I do not want any of you guys to feel like you can't launch your businesses, that you can't launch your YouTube channel, that you can't start putting yourself there online because you don't feel expert enough. Because if you let that be an excuse of you halting your progress, then you're never gonna get the result that you want. You're never going to get yourself to the place where you feel confident enough to declare yourself as an expert. Now, at this point in the video, I've shared with you a lot of the strategies and the mindset shifts that you need to make, especially when you feel like you're not expert enough to start your coaching business, to start posting content online. Now, we're gonna take this confidence that we now have onto social media. That being said, I want you to hit the notification bell, because in the next video, I'm going to teach you how to transcend this confidence into your Instagram bio. Specifically, I'm going to teach you the steps to crafting the perfect Instagram bio that allows you to position yourself as an expert. So again, guys, I want you to hit the notification bell so you don't miss this video. In the meantime, while you wait for that video to be public, I want you to also check out these 2 videos right here. I talk a lot about coaching, business, entrepreneurship, mindset, all these different topics, especially if you are someone who's just starting out in your journey. So I want you to also make sure you check out these videos as well. As always, guys, I appreciate you. I hope you guys have a great day, a great week, and a great life, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.